The 2011 to 2019 Jaguar XJ, the X351 generation. In this full buyer's guide video, I'm going to be talking about the various model year changes, some basic specs, and then we're going to get into the issues, the financials, and then we can conclude. But first, in this introduction, I just want to give my brief thoughts on this vehicle. It is one of my most favorite full-size, big-body luxury sedans ever. In fact, I think it is my most favorite. You know, aside from the W222 S-Class, it's really between these two cars. I think the XJ comes on top for me just because of how unique it looks. And also, I've driven several of these products and they all drive amazing. I have to give the credit where credit is due. This is the best handling full-size luxury sedan. I would say a close second would be the BMW 7 Series and the Porsche Panamera. That's obviously up there as well, but there's a special quality about the XJ where it feels like you're driving a car that's truly half of its size. I love it when automobiles are able to mask their size like that. And if you didn't know already, the XJ utilizes quite a bit of aluminum in its body structure, so it's one of the lightest weight full-size luxury cars available. And that's also helping in its nimble driving nature. So driving looks, that's all top tier. However, the interior space is definitely a letdown, especially on many of the used models that I've tested. The interior simply does not age well. It's creaking, it's crunching, it's got swirl marks and scratches all over the place. It's just not a quality interior. And the finishes that they use, especially the glossy treatment, yeah, it gets really nasty throughout the years. So I would say that's a letdown. But like with many people, I still love this car. And it's by far the most unique choice, even amongst things like the Maserati and the Porsche Panamera. Anyway, let's move on and let's talk about the various model year changes. And throughout the video, I'm going to be sharing with you different websites and resources that you can use for your own research on any car that you are interested in. All right, one of my most favorite websites to use to research used cars is going to be Edmunds. And Edmunds does an excellent job of compiling the various model year changes for these used cars. And 2011 in the United States, that was pretty much the first model year of this XJ. Moving on to 2012, they revised the features a little bit throughout the trim levels. The XJ Super Sport gets rear seat entertainment as standard, but they made the adaptive cruise control an option, which the Super Sport, that's their top trim level, top spec vehicle for its time. And I definitely think the extended wheelbase is the way to go because that truly gives you excellent rear legroom. Plus, I just think it looks amazing. But when you go with a extended wheelbase XJL Super Sport, that now includes rear seats that recline and massages in the rear for 2012. 2013 is when they introduced the new base engine, which is the supercharged 3-liter V6, and they also implemented all-wheel drive as an option. And they've gotten rid of the 6-speed automatic for a 8-speed ZF automatic in 2013. Both of the autos were from ZF, but now we have the 8-speed in 2013, and that's standard across the board for all the XJs. The ultimate trim level now becomes the top trim, and we also get some improved electronics and a new sound system in 2013. Moving on to 2014, the XJR now replaces the Super Sport trim, and previously there was a naturally aspirated V8 engine available. Now the 3-liter supercharged V6 takes over that engine for the XJL portfolio models. 2014 is also when they included the soft door closing mechanism for all of the models, along with a soft touch dashboard and door surfaces. We also get an enhanced seat massage system and a better premium audio system as an option. And in 2014, they also discontinued the ultimate trim level, and with that, the wood tray tables also disappeared for the rear occupants. 2015, there's no new changes, but in 2016, we got the mild facelift with new headlights and taillights, as well as a new grille. And we have new standard equipment like blind spot monitoring, heated and cooled seats. We have the Jaguar In Control app suite. And when you go with the XJL supercharged and portfolio models, you get the quilted seat trims as well. Rear-wheel drive XJs get the electric power steering, which also allows you to get the self-parking system. But when you go with a all-wheel drive 2016 XJ, that still utilizes a hydraulic power steering system. And the steering really is excellent with these vehicles. The feedback, the weight, all of it was perfect. So I do appreciate that hydraulic steering rack. Moving on to 2017, we don't have any crazy changes. We just have some new paint colors and a new 19-inch wheel. 2018, that's when we got the flagship XJR 575 model with 575 horsepower. This is the performance flagship. We also get a frameless rear view mirror and subtle updates to the infotainment, whilst being a larger infotainment screen as well at 10 inches. And this is also when we got the 4G Wi-Fi hotspot as well. And we have even more standard safety features for 2018. And 2019, we got a special edition called the XJ50 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the XJ. And we got automatic emergency braking, now as standard with the rear-wheel drive models. And we got a refreshed infotainment with available Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and a voice command system that now supports navigation input. And that's it. That's all of your various model year changes. Edmunds, as always, does a great job in documenting this stuff. In the next segment, we're going to go over some basic specs so you can be acquainted with this car a little bit more, and you can see the pricing and the various trim levels as well. Okay, once again, we're still utilizing the Edmunds website. And again, Edmunds does an excellent job of compiling the original OEM specs for every car. And not only does this spec sheet show you information about the car and the engine and the suspension, it also shows you the original MSRP price for that model year, along with the original pricing for the options for those model years. That in and of itself provides you with some interesting research. And in 2011, these XJs, it had a starting MSRP of $72,700. In 2019, a base model R Sport cost $75,400. So price went up about $3,000 over the entire generation of the XJ. That's really not bad. And it's important to keep in mind that the XJ existed before the whole pandemic nonsense occurred. But yeah, you can go through this. You can select the various trim levels that you are interested in and see what the specs are like. When the car first came out, we had the 5-liter V8, the naturally aspirated version. And that's certainly the engine I would recommend most people to go with if you're shopping for this thing in the used car market, because that is basically your most reliable and simplistic engine. It came with 385 horsepower, 380 pounds-feet of torque. Anything before 2013 came with that 6-speed automatic and only came with rear-wheel drive. It had a pretty low coefficient of drag of 0.29, and the weight, it ranged between 4,000 to 4,300 pounds, depending on your engine and your options and whether you got the long wheelbase or not, which again, that's not a terrible weight figure for a vehicle of this size and stature. We can move on to maybe a 2015 model year. I think that's a pretty decent sweet spot. If you can get a newer model year XJ, that's only going to help in terms of reliability. It's going to be a little bit more ironed out. And the 3-liter supercharged V6, that's a cool engine. I don't mind it. It came with 340 horsepower, 332 pounds-feet of torque. You got the 8-speed automatic, and apparently I was wrong. 2015 base model XJ is about 3,800 pounds. So yeah, that's really lightweight for what this is. But keep in mind the Porsche Panamera, when I did a video on the first generation, that was also a relatively lightweight large sedan, although the XJ is larger than the Panamera. And we had variations of the supercharged V8. Some of them were like non-performance variations with less horsepower, around 470, and then we had 510 horsepower and then 575. But good luck finding a relatively clean supercharged V8 XJ. They're far and few between. Most likely, if you're shopping for this segment, you're going to be looking for the 3-liter supercharged V6 or the 5-liter naturally aspirated V8. But the point of this is not for me to go over every little spec. The point is for me to share with you the resource so you can go through this for yourself and you can see the pricing and the price of the options for that model year. Like in 2019, a premium rear seat package cost $4,000. The Meridian sound system in 2019, that cost $4,200. So it's just cool to see what some of these options costed for that time. Anyway, let's move on and let's talk about the potential issues that you can run into with this car. Okay, as always, my most favorite website to research issues with any car is going to be nhtsa.gov. This is an American government website, and this documents the complaints that owners like to write in about, as well as recalls, investigations, and manufacturer communications, also known as TSBs or Technical Service Bulletins. These are issues that the manufacturer themselves find with their own products, and then they document it. And spoiler alert, this car is just as bad as its competitors, the Beamers, the Mercs, the Audis, even the Lexus LS460. I've done videos on just about all these cars, and they're all extremely problematic. They all have very expensive parts. It's very difficult to access some of these components, so labor charges are going to be pretty high, even if you go with a independent mechanic, because again, it takes a lot of hours to fix certain things. And I'll go through the used car pricing in the next segment, and I don't want to deter everyone, but I certainly want to deter the people that have like $300 to their name and they're going to some buy here pay here lot to pick up this Jaguar XJ. I definitely want to stop those people from purchasing this car, but for others this car might actually make sense, and we'll discuss that later. Right now we can go through the complaint section where I'm going over a 2013 XJ. It's got 8 complaints. This is where owners like you and me write in. And there was an individual that had a low coolant light pop up on the dash, and the engine literally stalled, shut off, and now this individual needs a new engine. He had a whole engine failure out on the road, and this happened at 65,000 miles. Again, this doesn't mean that every Jaguar XJ is going to have an engine failure at 65,000 miles, but it's important to understand that this can happen, and it has happened to an individual. The same way other XJ owners are going to see this video, comment saying that they've had their car for 700 years, they never changed the oil, they've never had an issue, and that's great. I believe those people too. Except I hate the arrogance that some of those people like to display. They act like they are the rule and not the exception. Cars are random. You cannot predict anything. One individual can have a perfect experience, like I have a master technician that has 2 Mercedes-Benzes with 300,000 miles on them each. He's never had an issue with either one. Same way I know people with brand new Toyotas with busted transmissions. So I'm just going over the potential issues, and I'm going to go over some other resources as well. But anyway, we can continue here. Fuel system issues, that's something that a couple of people have noted regarding these XJs. Another person had an unintended acceleration issue with their vehicle, and others have reported vibrations and shuddering from the car. And there were actually multiple TSBs regarding creaking and knocking noises from the suspension along with vibrations. That's something that Jaguar themselves have reported in various TSBs. And that brings me to another resource that you can use, and that's called carcomplaints.com. They pretty much take the exact same information from NHTSA, but they lay it out in a more understandable, easier to digest format. And you can do Control F and you can kind of go through the various TSBs here on car complaints. And other owners have talked about, various electronic issues, with the infotainment, with the gear lever knob that's a dial, but it's not just a regular dial that sits there. No, it goes up and down electronically, and that thing can actually fail, and the owner is unable to put the car into gear because the actual gear shifter has resided inside of the center console of the car, so they can't access it. And Jaguar does a lot of dumb things like this. They go off the deep end with simple things like the gear shifting knob that goes up and down, and other cars like the F-Type where the air vents come up and down, and it really doesn't add anything to the interior space other than unnecessary complexity for important components like the HVAC and the gear shifter. So just dumb little things like that. And electronic issues, I mean, that's just something that Jaguars and Land Rovers, they just have them, and a lot of owners have reported it. You're also going to have on the opposite end of the spectrum where owners have had zero electronic issues. I realize that as well. But anyway, that brings me to another resource, which is Google, and you can just Google Jaguar XJ X351 problems, and you're going to have various articles pop up that you can click on, like kmotors.co.uk. They're basically independent specialists for Land Rover Jaguar vehicles. They have an article here regarding issues with the early 3-liter supercharged V6 and the 5-liter V8s and the timing chains and the tensioners. The timing chain was jumping, and there's a design flaw with the tensioners, and that's all something to keep in mind. They're saying that if you're lucky, when you start the vehicle on a cold day, you'll have like a rattling sound, and that's how you know you potentially have a timing chain or tensioner issue. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the engine can just fail, and you may have to rebuild the valves and the pistons. You definitely need to keep up with the maintenance and be proactive with it, do regular oil changes, perhaps even every 3,000 to 5,000 miles actually. Water pump, that's another issue, along with coolant leaks. We have other articles from Westminster Motors where they go into the various engines like the AJ126, that 3-liter supercharged V6. They go through more issues in that article regarding the failed oil pumps, the cooling systems, and the glitchy engine electronics. Once again, electronic issues. We have another detailed article from Prestige and Performance Car. They gave us a nice detailed buyer's guide article as well, so you can look into that. But the point is, there's a lot of documented issues. It's the same across the board for the Mercs and the Audis and the BMWs. All these flagship sedans are going to have their issues. And once again, you can read more on the Jaguar forums as well. That's another resource that you can utilize, where owners once again talk about the various issues that they've run into with their cars. And also keep in mind air suspension, right? That's something that can go out with these cars. An owner was saying that every Jaguar XJ has traditional strut suspension in the front, but they all have air suspension in the rear. So that's another potential failure point, and my master technician just recommends when the air suspension goes out in your car, replace it with traditional struts. You can just go to Strut Masters and pick up a set for around $1,000, $1,100. And Strut Masters is different from other coilover companies like BC Racing or something, where they just make a generic coilover setup for every car. Strut Masters actually tunes the suspension for that particular car. Like if it's a XJ, they tune it for the XJ. If it's a Lexus LS 460, they tune and tweak the suspension to mimic the OEM ride quality for a Lexus, a Jaguar, etc. A lot of people, they say, ew, Strut Masters, I can't believe you would recommend that. It's not just me recommending it, it's literally a full master technician recommending it, and he's running it on his wife's Mercedes GL and has had zero issues with it. A lot of the problems that people report are people who buy these suspension kits and they try to install it themselves, they screw it up, and then they blame the company. That's usually what ends up happening. So anyway, I think that's enough. I think you get the point. Some of the things I talked about, it can literally bankrupt a person. But again, that's the case with all of these flagship luxury vehicles. Parts and electronic issues, it costs a fortune. So it is what it is. But let's go ahead and let's talk about the buying market and potential warranties next. Okay, I like to use cargurus.com to search used vehicles and pricing, because on this website you are able to filter out the accident cars, the lemon histories, and the salvage titles, etc. You can filter all those cars out. The reason why you want to do that is because you have no idea how some of these body shops put these cars back together. It's not going to be back to that OEM spec, and with so many of these aluminum components on the Jaguar XJ, if the vehicle did get into an accident, the body shop needs to be highly trained in being able to properly replace those aluminum components, and I would just rather not chance it. I would rather avoid those accident cars altogether. Plus, when you have an accident on the Carfax, you'll never get good resale value for that car. So again, avoid that headache. And you have about 200 clean Jaguar XJs for this generation available throughout the country. And when you sort by the lowest price ones, you see some juicy examples where they cost about $10,000 to $15,000. That is an incredible price for a car that looks like this and drives like this. And that's going to get a lot of people excited, and they're really going to want to pull the trigger on this vehicle. A lot of first-time car buyers and teenagers, they're really going to want to buy this as their first car, and those are the people who I want to protect. I don't want some kid in college or in high school to buy this. I don't want people with $300 to their name going out and buying these vehicles. No, you still need to be relatively rich in order to afford these cars, especially out of a warranty. A brand new car that you're leasing or is under full factory warranty, yeah, who cares? You can buy any new car out there. That's not really a problem because you're going to be taken care of. But when you buy something like this with 150,000 miles on it, there's absolutely nobody to take care of you. Okay, but if you're relatively rich and you have a good, high quality, independent technician nearby that you trust where you live, you can have them do a pre-purchase inspection, make sure the vehicle comes with an excellent maintenance history, no accidents, no weird title issues, and if everything checks out, honestly, for these prices, I would say go for it if you have the funds necessary and you're paying cash for this stuff, because if you're financing a car in this ridiculous high interest rate environment, then this is not going to make any sense. Expect to pay well over 10% in interest on a used car loan right now. Some banks, they might not even finance these used cars because they're too old now at this point. So if you're buying one of these cheap models, definitely pay cash, get the lowest mileage one that you can get, and if you can find the naturally aspirated 5-liter V8, that would be ideal as well, so you can avoid the supercharger issues. And if you buy one of these cars for less than 15 grand and you can afford it, and say the engine does blow up, well, you can just go scrap the car and call it a day. You know, hopefully the thing lasts you at least 2 to 3 years and you have a paid off XJ that you're driving around in. I think that's cool. But once again, you still need to be relatively well off in order to play that game, in order to pay cash and have a good mechanic by your side, etc. On the opposite end, you can also purchase a certified pre-owned Jaguar, and that's great. That's what I would recommend. However, the price is going to range between $43,000 to $55,000 for a certified pre-owned Jaguar XJ. It's going to come with an excellent original Jaguar warranty. They're going to take care of you at the dealership. That's not a problem. But paying like 50 grand for a 5-6 year old car, it's not that great, because as we saw, the MSRP of these vehicles, it was around 75 grand, right? The starting price. But as we all know with these cars, you know, the original buyer who bought these things new, if they were savvy enough, you know they got a big discount to purchase or lease that car new. So nobody pays the original MSRP prices. It's possible that some of these original buyers got like $10,000 off of MSRP, maybe even more. So that myth where people say that the first owner takes such a big hit on depreciation, that's not completely true. Yeah, they obviously take a hit, but it's not as drastic as people might think. If they're doing a low interest rate lease, if they take advantage of the manufacturer incentives and the dealer discounts, the first owner isn't losing as much as you might think. The person buying this thing used for 50 grand, they're still going to take a depreciation hit. probably just as bad, if not worse, as the first person, and they're driving around in a 6-year-old car with miles on it. And regarding warranties, I mean, that's tough. A lot of the aftermarket warranty companies, they're not that great. Like, I saw people on Reddit complaining about the endurance warranties, how they bought it and they simply would not pay out on any of the repairs. I remember I had a Hendrick AutoGuard warranty. They paid out every time. However, that was like 8 years ago. Maybe that company sucks now. And also Hendrick AutoGuard, they might not be available nationwide. You can consider contacting them, but I don't know if they're going to be available in your state or if they deal nationwide. But the OEM warranty from Jaguar or any other OEM company, you can trust that. They're going to take care of you. The CarMax warranty seems to be the next best choice. However, CarMax only has like 10 XJs available for sale. And I remember a Patreon member of mine, he has a Lexus LS 460 that he bought from CarMax. He bought the warranty and they also did not cover certain things, like when he had a Mark Levinson audio system amplifier that failed on him, CarMax would not replace that amp. So they're not perfect, but they seem to be one of the better warranty options out there. Anyway, if you've had a good experience with the aftermarket warranty company, please let us know in the comment section below and share with us what company that was and which vehicle that you bought and at what mileage. But let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. Alright, as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of the XJ. I love the looks, I love the way it drives. It truly is a special vehicle. I even think about buying it sometimes, but I obviously never will because of all these issues that you can run into. It's hard to find good warranty companies, and you're not going to be really financing this thing unless it's certified pre-owned, so you pretty much have to pay cash for this stuff in the used car market. And I don't know, I just don't want to deal with a high mileage clapped out Jaguar product, no matter how good it looks. Personally, I just like to lease and dump new vehicles. I like to find good deals on the Lease Hacker forum. That's personally what I like to do, but that's mainly because I have good credit and because I don't drive 3 trillion miles a year, so I can make that work for myself. But if you're an owner of one of these cars, let us know how it's been holding up for you. But thanks again for watching, take care, and goodbye.